Two, and one. The purpose of engineering is problem solving, and the difference between the problem solving we do in the classroom and the problem solving done in the real world is that engineers have to inherently be reactive to the circumstances and variables that change. Newsflash: engineers are not artists. They do not have to be. They don't have to be the next Iron Man or the next Mr. Fantastic. What the world needs for them is to be consistent and to make things congruent to the status quo for the people who need it. The main clash in this debate is one of inherent usefulness. Because the main metric specifically in engineering is in how can it be applied to the most broadest of cases to be the most useful for people. We on opposition just simply say that iterative design is better suited for the change that naturally occurs. A lot of response towards opening government. One, OG presumes the main reason for engineering to exist is to be innovative. I call bullshit for three reasons. One, 95 of engineers, like 95% of engineers don't innovate. They learn already known solutions to problems and then they execute. There is a reason architecture majors don't reinvent the wheel in college. In fact, it's the opposite. The plethora of models that PM already talk about already exist in how engineers learn to begin with. The exclusive thing that PM has failed to defend is how they need to find new designs on uncharted territory. The second thing I would like to point out is that Elon Musk is probably a one of one. If we lived in a perfect world, I would put all my bets in opening government where everyone is intelligent and everyone is creative and everyone can innovate. Newsflash, that's not how the world works. In fact, their world works on an incredibly perverse incentive where if everyone prioritizes on creating something new, what currently exists cannot be maintained. I want to emphasize the impact they decide to ignore. Because on their side, you lose building useful but maybe inefficient waterways and electricity poles that can help give water and energy to minority communities. That is itself the trade-off of time that you lose on gov. Third, DPM tries to shotgun their way into what engineers are for. DPM says engineers are innovators, and they're also policymakers, and they're also economists, and they're also part of the government. Like, bro, let's just make every engineer a part of the Senate at this point if OG says they can fix the LRT and MRT. Obviously, engineers don't have all of the capacity to do these things. DPM posits a non-issue that can't even be solved in this debate. Secondly, CG asks a interesting question to their POI. What happens to the mid people and the mid engineers and how can they help? I think they can help through building already set standardized things that are safer, that are more trustable, that can particularly help. That is my extension. Extension. Why iterative optimization allows for more multidisciplinary evolution and why that evolution is inherently going to stick longer and just be a lot more stable. Why is this true? The first reason this is true is just on pure scale. Opening opposition gets the benefit of having engineering put on a faster and more accessible scale. The nuance to this particular mech is that people need these designs and invention on a very high demand. Things like small infrastructure to build buildings, to build pipelines in your community, to build electricity poles in your cities. Those are all things that require immediate attention right now. So the main metric is not perfection, it's about usefulness. Problem: opening government and government bench inherently loses that particular metric the moment they decide to design to build things from the ground up. Let's take them at their best and focus on the example found in the info slide. Maybe SpaceX found a new and innovative way to build rockets and land them back again. What is the problem? It still takes a long ass time to share that particular design when more inefficient rockets are still comparatively better right now and for the foreseeable future, especially in aerospace missions using them for satellites and GPS and other related useful stuff. Impact: more people, especially underprivileged people, without access to things we take for granted, get helped faster on our world. On their side, they will have to wait, they will have to starve, they will have to die of thirst before getting the innovative help that they want to give. I want to nuance this particular mech because it's very susceptible to a glib response. What I am saying is that smarter design will inevitably win out. That is the premise of iterative optimization. But that can only come about at the point in which these things are already built and they are already tested with real world use. So the way to this mech is on winning the short term, and the long term. This inherently responds to DPM's like scary impacts of things not being good. Before the second mechanism, I'll take a POI from CG. Cool. The second mechanism is just one of simple quality assurance. Because side government seems to believe or seems to live in a world where the only meaningful metric of effectivity is success. I ask and I posit a very simple question. What if it fails? What if the first principle design doesn't account for a very minute thing that was overlooked but end up wrecking up the entire process and design? E.g., what if you have an assumption that sounded smart in conceptualization, but in actuality, there's a reason as to why that assumption wasn't taken into account in your design process? Note how incredibly worse the impact of that particular harm is on their side of the house. Because on our side of the house, when things are made or when things have a mistake in the design process, you already necessarily have built a prototype. You can already roll it back. You can already make it better through change. Yes, it might harm people, but there is a clear pathway to improvement. On their side, it is a massive setback causing billions upon billions of dollars. If you don't believe me, this is literally what happened with SpaceX and the rocket example found in the info slide. The first two times that the rocket was tested, it exploded. The only reason that Elon Musk could even survive all of that because he had to sacrifice one of his companies or whatever. The point is, the sacrifice and the big impact that we want to give is all of that innovative design costs money, costs an exorbitant amount of money, and the opportunity cost that you get is for some maybe efficient thing working, but at the cost of all of these people who need less efficient things that still work, coming to them and being a lot more beneficial to them. On the way, opening opposition understands how engineering works as an industry. Engineers are not artists. They don't have to do all of these fancy stuff and sexy stuff that opening government seems to want to attribute to them. They work on the basis of providing solutions to tangible problems, and those solutions are not necessarily going to be the most innovative. But even in those instances, iterative optimization still proves the pathway for small improvements over time, and this is far, far, far more sustainable than everything else that government has talked about. For all of those reasons, incredibly proud to oppose. Thank you.